Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who asked for consistent communication and instead got a month of silent treatment. But before we begin, we're going to just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
People are wild, let me tell you. Yes, Sam and I are not professionals. We are not trained in this. We have no, professional training or accreditation in relationships or mental health. So please take our advice as you see fit. We're only here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs on the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love. But first, it's Monday, so let's do a check-in topic. Today's check-in topic is inspired by a letter writer. Their name is Max Emas Thought. Their pronouns are she, her, and they are writing from Washington. I'm not going to read the letter. We're just going to steal the idea from it because it's a question basically about what do we think about the idea of being in somebody's league or out of a league or mismatched leagues, Like
I get it.
Justice League and Marvel, you know what I mean? Like they're from different places. And the letter is basically just like asking it about our thoughts about this and, societal views on this and whatnot. So I thought we could muse for a couple minutes before diving into our letter about being in the same league or not. What does it mean? How does it matter, etc.
Yeah. And what does it feel like? What if we feel like we're mismatched in our leagues and if other people are thinking about us in that way too? I think unsurprisingly, not a huge fan of leagues because I'm not a huge fan of, ascribing worth to people based on their looks or whatever. And I think that there's a lot about these divisions of people that deny us the ability to be in real connection with people, right? If we're sort of trying to decide all of this stuff about people because of how they look, how much money they make, the things that they do, whatever it might be, then cool, we're going to miss out on a lot of really awesome people in our lives who are cool and funny and smart and all of these different things. And I think that leagues limit us. The idea of leagues is definitely something that certainly doesn't enhance our experience of the human condition and instead probably makes it more diminished.
Yeah. I was going to say, on the least harmful end of the spectrum, it's a weird way to compliment your partner when you're oh, you're so out of my league, you're way hotter than I am or whatever. And it is possible to compliment your partner and feel grateful and in awe of the fact that they want to be with you without disparaging yourself, We might not be very well versed in that as a society, but it's not like a tit for tat sort of thing. And I wanted to say that, I think it's perfectly understandable to fall victim to these sort of ideas. Anytime that we as a society, I think we love to categorize people, whether to feel better than them or to oppress them or to, justify our intimidation of them by them or whatever. And it makes a lot of sense because the idea of being in and out of somebody's leagues. I mean, I remember learning about that maybe when I was 10, I don't know.
Young, for sure.
It's part of a very common dialogue around dating and accessibility and people. So I'm confident that at some point in the last 5 years of doing this podcast, we have made a joke about that or we have used it in a disparaging way when talking about an ex or something like that.
For sure.
But at this point in my life, I'm really trying to push back against that easy pathway. And what it is there's this pathway for all of us to say oh, well, I'm better than them because of X, Y, and Z, or they're better than me because of this reason. An easy one for me is somebody who is who makes a ton of money. That always makes me feel like I'm out of their league because I'm just this little dirtbag child who grew up in the woods and who makes money writing poems. Do you know what I mean? like I definitely feel out of a real person job league.
For sure, yeah.
Like if I ever dated a doctor, oh my God, are you kidding me? I'd be like, I write about feelings and you cut people open medically for a living. Like, we are not on the same plane.
For sure. Absolutely.
However, all of this is to say that sort of thinking, that sort of like societal categorizing that we love to do, as Sam said, it makes a hierarchy of people. And we can say this and we can recognize that there is a hierarchy of people. It's called like oppression.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
It's patriarchy and capitalism where we value people. It's our fat phobic society where we value people for what they look like. It's racism, right? It's fucking everywhere. So we can say that it exists. Yes. But in my little heart, in my little social circle, I am not going to participate in that sort of categorization of people anymore.
Yep.
Because it just harms us, because it says that people are inherently more valuable than other people, which I don't believe and I don't want to contribute to.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And like, I think that there is definitely, like, people are going to continue to think about leagues around us, right? And part of I think the work of like pushing back against this kind of stuff is like doing the self work to be like, it doesn't matter what people think about our relationship, right? Like, it doesn't matter if they think that we're like disparate in our leagues, because like this person is with me. They're like choosing to be here and I'm choosing to be with them. And that at the end of the day is the only thing that matters. Like, right? If Sierra is writing her poetry and her doctor
and my doctor boyfriend,
yeah, or whatever, is like cutting people open.
Doctor.
Yeah. And they both love each other and are in this relationship because they want to be together, then like the league thing doesn't matter. And
yeah,
I think that like some of this is like, how do we acknowledge the realities of the harm that like societal oppression is causing on us? And also, how do we not participate in it when it comes to our own sense of self and our own relationships, right? Like, easier said than done, for sure. But I do think that like the ways in which we inflict our harm on ourselves because of, our internalized homophobia or our internalized fat phobia or whatever it is, right? That is like something that we actually have some control over, right? In ways that we may not have as much control over the systems of racism and oppression that are out there. So I think like paying attention to that and saying to yourself, if you're in a situation where you're wondering, like, are people thinking like, oh my God, he's so much more attractive than him, so like they shouldn't be together, right? Like, who cares? Right? Like, it's a stupid way to be thinking. So like, why are we putting any sort of like inherent meaning to other people's stupid ways of thinking?
Well, I wouldn't say stupid. I would say that it is inherently flawed.
I think it's dumb.
Well, another reason why I want to push back on it, especially at this time in my life, is how profoundly empowering and healing it has been to remind myself that my system of judgment in the world, or like my preferences or what I'm attracted to, is not like a universal scale. That we talk so much about how attraction and sexuality is nebulous and diverse to each person, and we like to pretend that it's this one way or the other way,
Yep.
And the idea of a league implies that there's some sort of universal scale out there, that says, people of this many attraction points and this many money points or whatever can only be attracted to these people with comparable points or whatever, know, and that little system of scorekeeping doesn't exist, or it is individualized to each person. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Easier said than done, like Sam said. And this is not at all to shame anyone who believes this way, but this is what we're trying to do over here, is sort of like in the same vein of like demonogamizing my mind. I'm trying to D-League. I'm on the D-League.
Hey,
it's not the A-League, it's not the B-League, it's not even the C-League. I'm trying to D-League.
Yeah.
My mind. Yeah. Okay. Let's get into today's letter.
Absolutely. All right, let's do it. So this letter comes from Overcommunicator in the Radio Silence, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing from not a party in the USA.
Did you guys know that that's like one of Sam and I's songs?
Like if we were ever like
if we
at
had
a
to have
wedding
a song.
or like out somewhere and that song comes on, like Sierra and I run to each other.
From
like,
different sides of the room. That
Yes.
would probably be our relationship song.
yes, I have like
Yeah.
been in the bathroom at a club and heard that song come on and like sprint out of the bathroom to find Sierra.
Meanwhile, I'm panicking. I'm circling the dark club trying to find him. Sam, it's on. All right.
Okay, let's get into it. All right, so Overcommunicator writes, I, she, her, 26, have been seeing a guy, he, him, 33, let's call him David, for the last year. Prior to that, he had only dated one woman seriously. They were together for about a year. We dated after his breakup with her, but then he broke things off with me to get back together with his ex. I was devastated, but moved on. Then, when things went south with his ex, with finality, he started seeing me again. There were months in between each of these events. He didn't just hop from one relationship to the next. David and I have now been seeing each other for about a year, sometimes once a month and at other times once a week. According to him, I asked him frankly, he has not been seeing other people. He just leads a full life and maintains lots of friendships, thus the inconsistency of dates between us. He's told me that he'd like to date me seriously, but the timing has been off. However, he has never been forthcoming in asking me to meet up, but has responded to my requests to meet up with interest, which has frustrated me to no end as it feels like I'm driving this, quote, not a relationship. For reference, I'd say that I initiate about 80% of the conversation and or the meetups. So in late spring, I issued an ultimatum to him because I wanted more consistency. I asked for more regular dates, at least twice a month, clear communication as to why and when he was not available, and more initiative from him in setting up times to see each other. I believed I phrased it as, quote, an ultimatum with less stringent terms than a relationship. I told him if he could not abide by those terms, then I would end our relationship, to which he said that he didn't have the bandwidth to respond to my ultimatum, and I didn't hear from him for a month. When I asked him about it a month later, he said that he thought I was clearly looking for a relationship and he was not sure if a relationship was what he wanted since he is, quote, a fickle bitch and thus did not want to keep leading me on. I responded saying I was also a fickle bitch and did not really want a relationship so much as I wanted greater consistency and communication. I thought I had been clear the first time around. This led us to feeling more on the same page, and then we proceeded to see each other twice within the next 2 weeks. But this past month has been radio silence. I've asked to meet up with him several times, at least 4 or 5 times, with little to no response. So I asked him to let me know if he was no longer interested so I could stop embarrassing myself and move on, since I can only take so much rejection. Again, no response. I understand that ghosting is a real thing, but I feel like I have enough rapport and history with him to deserve a response. At this point, I don't really care if he's, quote, breaking up with me, but I would like a clear yes or no to that effect. Given how inconsistent our, quote, relationship has been at this point, I can't really tell if this radio silence is ghosting or just him leading a full and busy life with little time for me. Either way, I know I deserve better, but no one I have met compares to him in terms of compatibility or attraction, which makes this radio silence even more disheartening. So I think my real question is this: am I being silly in continuing to ask for clarity from him? In some ways, I feel like continuing to ask for clarity should help him become a more mature adult, since mature adults actually communicate how they feel, LOL. I'm not desperate for him so much as I am confused and frustrated by behavior or fickle bitchiness. I realize that even if we did date, this kind of volatile, get close and pull away aspect would likely just rear its ugly head. But again, part of me just chalks up this vacillation to the timing being off. Open to any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, or even a PSA about how flaky straight men are. LOL. Thanks for all that you are and do for us brokenhearted souls. Sincerely, Overcommunicator in the Radio Silence.
All right, my darling. Thank you so much for listening and writing and trusting us with this letter. I'm sorry you're feeling this source of pain and frustration from this not relationship. I think that we can, in really painful moments of rejection like this, I feel like it's so irresponsible of us to just hurt ourselves more, which is what we always do. You know what I mean? Like I will be I was that person who always wanted to get bigger clarity on the clarity that I was already getting. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I was like, I just want you to say it. I want you to say the words, I don't want to be with you. And then they would say it. And then I'd be like, just say it again, but like, look me in the eye directly so like, I know that you mean it. You know what I mean? Like,
I do know what you mean,
and
yes.
That is unfortunately, I think, something that's happening here is that you are getting the answers that you're looking for, but they're not the answers you want to hear. So Sam and I are going to hopefully help translate some of this behavior for you in ways that feel, empowering and on the nose and helpful, albeit painful. But first, we have to take a very quick break.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I think that this situation that you're in, over-communicator, and it's funny that you used to call yourself an over-communicator because it doesn't strike me as like over-communicating with this person. It just sounds like he's incapable of communicating back to you. I think that this situation of like, especially we're in this place where we're like already diminishing our own wants in a relationship where it's like, I've made myself small, so small that I can't understand how you couldn't just like put me in your pocket, right? Like just put me in there, just keep me in there. Look how small I am. I've made myself so small and they're still like, I don't want to put you in my pocket. And like that feeling of like, oh man, I'm kind of like compromising what I want.
They don't put you in their pocket, but they don't tell you that they don't want to put you in the pocket.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where we are, right? It's the action is not happening, but the words aren't happening either. So the letter writer's stuck in this middle ground because they want to hear it, even though the actions are backing up the anti-statement.
Oh, for sure,
you know
absolutely.
What I mean?
Yeah, and it's like, you're pretty small. Maybe I'll put you in my pocket. I don't know. Like, I would be interested in putting you in my pocket, but like, I don't know which pocket I want to put you in, and like that.
No. She's just like folded up on the table, and he's wearing a shirt with a pocket. Do you know what I mean? So like, the potential is there. But we haven't heard him say, "I don't want to wear." You know, he hasn't taken it off. Anyway.
And like, I think that I think it's like sort of like a sunk costs thing, at least for me in these types of situations
100%.
Where it's just like, I've already put so much effort into like making myself available for this person and like they still won't pick me, right? Like they still won't give me the time. They still won't put me in their pocket. And like, and this feeling of like, I have done so much work to convince myself of like, well, it's okay. I don't want a relationship. Or like, oh, it's okay if we don't hang out as much. All I need is just this crumb, right? Like this crumb will make me feel so much more satiated, right? I just need him to give me a little bit more of his time and it'll be fine, right? Or like, I just need him to like smile at me when we see each other, right? Like that's all that I need from it. And like, just like wasting away trying to subsist on these crumbs and feeling like I am a crazy person for even having the audacity to ask for more, right? Like I'm being so unreasonable to say like, wait, can you consistently communicate with me, right? Like that is such a reasonable ask for somebody who you are dating/not dating. And I think that this like feeling of like that you have of like, he just won't say the thing out loud. He won't say yes or no to me. I don't think that this man is capable of saying yes or no to you. I think that he has been trying to say no to you in lots of different ways, which is like, I think you want a relationship and I'm a fickle bitch. So that means that I don't think we should be together, or I don't have the ability to respond to your request for more communication. So I'm just going to not talk to you for a month, or you're asking me to hang out 4 or 5 times and I'm not saying anything back, right? Like I'm just ghosting you around hanging out, right? Is this a good or like healthy or like appropriate way for him to be communicating to you? Probably not, right? I also wish that he would come out just straight and say what he wants, and which is probably that he doesn't want to be in a relationship. And he is also really communicating with you in this. And I think it's important that as you're looking at the situation, that like this type of behavior where he's like not communicating with you for months at a time is a pretty clear signal about what he is and isn't willing to give you in this relationship. And it's really clear that you're asking for the opposite of that, right? Like you're asking for clear communication and he's like, no, a month of silence. Or no, if you ask me to hang out, I'm not going to respond to you. Or you asked him to initiate more hangouts and he hasn't done that, right? He has literally not done that and has actually said nothing or no to anything that you've proposed to him. So no person is this busy that he cannot like find space to talk with you for a month, right? Like no person is that busy. I'm just going to say it, unless they are like, I don't know, on an oil well somewhere and have no cell reception. Like
they have internet though. I think.
I have no idea.
On those big rigs or whatever. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Anyway, you should take over.
Yeah, that's hard to hear, Blackwell.
Yeah,
that's hard to hear.
I'm going full truth mode, and I think that we need to soften it a little bit.
Yeah. No. Okay, well, I won't soften it quite yet.
Okay.
I want to know, to my darling letter writer, before I continue on what Sam was saying, which is how we can find the strength and personal self-respect to believe what people are telling us with their actions, because it's hard. That is literally, it's very hard to communicate on behalf of them via their behaviors. Do you know what I mean? It's like interpret their behaviors. Like that is labor that we do for people who are incapable of communicating.
Yep.
Before I go down that path for a while, I'm curious about the decision to say that you don't want a relationship. And I'm not in your body. I'm not in your mind. I'm not in your life. I do not know what the parameters of that was or the reasoning. I don't know what your history is, your dating history or whatever. But it sounds like from your letter, I can surmise that you want to date this person. If not right now, if he said, I want to date you, you would say, let's be together, right? This is me just guessing. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You can fast forward to when Sam's talking again. But it sounds like you want to date this person, and ways in which we can sort of undercut ourselves in interpersonal interactions and relationships is by trying to, like Sam said, fold our desires, fold our boundaries, fold our requests into smaller and smaller shapes so that we can be more appealing to the other person. Because I think, especially for women at a really young age, we were taught that our job was to be accommodating to other people's desires of us. So it makes a lot of sense to me as an outsider that if David said he didn't want a relationship, if I was you, my sort of reaction to that would be like, oh, well, me neither.
Yeah, for
How
sure.
can I accommodate your parameters? How can I fit my needs within the parameters of your desires?
Sure.
That's something that I'm very well versed in. I think that we all are, but especially in terms of like the conditioning that women get when it comes to hetero presenting relationships. And I want to know, do you really not want a relationship? Or is it easier to say you don't want a relationship because you're afraid of scaring somebody off by, saying that you don't want anything casual? Are you hiding behind that? Or is that your truth? Because again, I don't know. I'm not in your body, but it really seems like if he said, yes, let's date, you would want to date.
Yeah.
And if that's true, what I want to say is it is 100% okay and empowering, actually helpful even, to claim what you want, to own it, to live it, to know that it is 100% okay to want a relationship in 2023, right? That doesn't make you a not cool chick. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And in fact, if you really own that, if you say that, if you tell yourself, I love myself, I'm desirable, I'm a catch, I'm beautiful, I'm smart, this is what I want, and I respect myself enough to go after it, that embodiment of your desire, right? To say like, I want a relationship, right? If you embody that and then somebody says, I don't want a relationship and I'm not going to contact you for months at a time, it makes the decision, it makes that interpreting so much easier. It makes the decision of like, wow, I want a relationship, and he's showing up in such an anti-relationship sort of way, a way that, you know, devalues my time, lessens his respect for me, right? Like, you know, that doesn't feel, he's not acting in the way that I would want a partner to act.
Yep.
It makes the decision of cutting somebody off that much easier, because you say, this is not in alignment with my vision and my desires for my life. And sure. I absolutely have a right to have those visions and desires. Like, I feel you are not you're not a cool chick for saying,
yeah.
I want a relationship. I feel like we were raised in a particular time, if you are anywhere close to my generation, where like the cool chick was like down to have casual sex and hang out with the boys, and like didn't ask anything of that person, and was like only available as this like side piece that only talked to the main character boy man about whatever he wanted to talk about. I'm talking about a very specific genre of movies.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with having casual sex, and I have no problem with people who don't want relationships. It sounds like you wanted one with him and you didn't give yourself permission to say it fully or believe it. And if you did, then it makes the decision that much easier. Wow, this man doesn't want a relationship and I do. Therefore, he is incompatible with me. Absolutely. He is not fitting my criteria, right?
Absolutely.
What are your criterias in these relationships, even if they're not relationships, as you say?
Yeah.
What are your criterias for people being in relationship with you in whatever way? That they talk to you, that they contact you, that they respect your time and your communication style? Because he's not doing that. And there's no like secret code that you need to figure out to interpret his behaviors to a more truthful way. It is what it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are really concerned about his clarity. And like Sierra said, like, I want your clarity. Like, I want your clarity about what you want.
Fuck his clarity.
Yeah. Like, and fuck his emotional maturity, right? Like, you don't need to get him to say it to you so that he can somehow become more emotionally mature. Like, that's not your responsibility. And I don't want you to think about that as being something that is somehow your thing that you have to help do for him, right? Like in this situation, I don't really care about him, right? If he wrote in, we would absolutely love and talk to him about this, but like, he's not here, you are. And I think that like, you know, as you're thinking about this idea of like, oh, we're so compatible, it's just that we can't like get the timing right. And I want to say to you that you are incompatible because of the timing, because of the way that he's communicating with you, because you want different things out of this relationship, because he doesn't have the emotional maturity to say yes or no to you. Those things are all rooted in incompatibilities between you. So I know that you're looking at this relationship and saying like, we get along, we really like each other. All of those things are really great. But when we're thinking about whether or not you two are actually going to be able to be in relationship together, these things are foundational. They are not tangential. They're not ancillary. They are like at the core of whether or not this relationship is going to function, whether or not you are actually compatible with each other. And so I want you, like Sierra said, to get some clarity around that fact and decide for yourself about whether or not you want to continue to invest time, energy, space, attention to a man who is absolutely not reciprocating it, right? I want you to make the decision and not feel like you're in this like nebulous place where you have no control, because you may not be able to control him into being in the relationship you want him to be in with you, but you do have choices in this situation. You can make the decision about how you are going to behave given what he is giving to you in terms of this relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I know this is hard. I know that this is painful. Like it is undoubtedly a more painful route to look at the situation and to interpret his behavior for him rather than holding out for him to say something differently. But he's being loud and clear to me and Sam. And we know that there are other people out there who won't make you work this hard, who won't make you wait this long, who won't leave you on red to answer questions like, do you want to hang out? Right.
Right.
There are people out there, relationship or not, love or not, that will won't make you work as hard as this person has. So we wish you the best of luck, and we hope this helps.
Thank you so much for writing. We love you.
We love you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you are interested in more content from us, or if you are interested in ad-free episodes, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode, as well as access to episodes without ads. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DM, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can get our merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast and his music. And remember, it's okay to state what you want. It's okay for your desires to be incompatible with other people's desires of you. If they want you to be small, it's okay for you to be big. If they want you to be quiet, it is okay for you to be loud. We don't have to be in perfect harmony with everyone. And in fact, that is not the path. That act of self-folding is not the path to connection. The truth path of connection is to say, here, this is who I am, this is what I want, and to find the people who can meet you there. That's connection. And if all else fails,
just break up.